What's up, world? Today we have the G37s Coupe, a 2008 featuring a 3.7 liter V6, making a whopping 300 plus horsepower. It's a 6-speed manual transmission, but today it doesn't feel like it has so much horsepower. It's been having a check engine light. The code's been reset. It's came back, so it's a constant problem. After reviewing the codes P0011 and I believe P0021 and P0524 at one point, we suspected that the intake cam actuators were faulty, so we went ahead and replaced that. Unfortunately, the code came back. It was mentioning an oil pressure issue, so we checked the oil level. The oil level seemed full, so we decided to check. Maybe it had sludge in it, maybe there was a blockage in one of the orifices or something like that. So we drained the oil, put new oil in it, and the problem subsided for a little while, and then it came back. Once the check engine light illuminated, it went into limp mode. So after doing some heavy research online, we found out there's a thing called a galley gasket located in the depths of the engine. They might as well call it the gully gasket because it's really in the depths of the engine. Nissan, or should I say the Infiniti dealer, quoted $4,600 to repair this problem with the gully gasket. Unfortunately, I have a bunch of tools here and some experience, and after reviewing this guy's YouTube video, I grew some balls, basically, some confidence on taking on this job. So like he said, I'm terrified as shit right now. The dealer says you have to remove the engine, but this guy on YouTube, he actually removed the front radiator support to gain access to the front of the motor. So the entire timing cover has to come off. This motor uses a timing chain, so it's sealed behind a gasket. So y'all gonna take this ride with me or not? You might as well watch and see what happens, because right now this is a first experience for me. Alright, so what's up, world? We're gonna start taking apart this engine, but first we got to remove the radiator support. So on any Japanese car, the 10mm socket is your best friend. Like you can't work on no Japanese car without a 10mm socket. So first things first, we're gonna remove the bumper, but I'm gonna remove these plastic parts right here that's covering the radiator support. And then also down here there's gonna be some bolts holding on the bumper, so let's do that real quick. Alright, what's up, YouTubers? Right now, as you can see, I'm nearly complete with removing the radiator support.
Hour and a half in.
Most of it is just nuts and bolts, but I want to show you guys something real quick. So these two lines are the AC lines to the condenser. For some strange reason, Nissan designed the condenser and the radiator into one complete unit. So the hard lines over here go through the radiator support. So if I wanted to remove this completely off the car and have it out of the way, I would naturally have to disconnect this line that's running way back there somewhere. So to avoid that and to save some time, we decided that we're gonna make a slot right here, cut two lines to allow this to come out, because it doesn't really matter because there's a bracket here holding the line to the rad support. So this is just a little mechanic pointer for you guys in case you run into this problem.
Know what I mean? Shout out to your boy Germ, big time on helping me with my car. Thank you. Shout out to Smooth Media, #1.
So back to this piece that we was talking about. As you can see, we used a grinder and cut a little portion out. Now this AC lines are easily removed without removing the entire AC line.
Hey, make sure you get your grinder. Shout out to the grinder.
Shout out to the grinder though. Real life.
Right.
Facts.
10 seconds.
You ain't never failed us.
Never.
Ah, shit. So that's like an hour and 45 minutes in. Finally got the front clip off of the G37. Now you clearly can see we have full access to the front of the motor. So all of these accessories got to come off. Then the timing cover is going to come off. Oil pan goes down. And we're going to get to the gully gasket.
So he driving around this EK right here with no brakes. Shame on this guy right here.
Okay, world, so right now we're trying to remove the bolt out of the crankshaft pulley, and this bolt is very stuck on there. So far I used impact wrench, snap-on Makita. I tried to heat it up with a map gas torch and use the impact wrench. Still no success. So now I had to bring out the big guns. Hopefully this will get the job done. I went ahead and got myself an acetylene torch to heat this nut up. Hopefully this will be enough heat to break free that crankshaft pulley. And then once we get that off, everything should not be that much difficult. Okay, what's up, world? It is now 6:41 and I still haven't removed the crankshaft pulley. So we attempted to get an acetylene torch. I borrowed it from my friend and he was like, yeah, the oxygen tank is empty, just get gas for it and you could borrow it or whatever. So we went to the store and he said it was the orange tank. So we went ahead and swapped out the orange tank and changed it. So as I was hooking up the orange tank, look what it said, acetylene. So that means we swapped out the wrong tank. I know, I'm pissed. And the store's closed. They're open tomorrow, but they close really early, so I gotta wake up really early and go get the oxygen. So in the meanwhile, I went ahead and started pulling off all these accessories in the front here. So I removed the alternator, removed the power steering pump, removed the bracket. On this side, removed the AC compressor. Started disconnecting all these ground wires, all these wires attached on the top portion over here. So now I'm going to drain the oil, because according to my other friend from YouTube, there are 2 bolts in the oil pan that hold this cover on. So I'm gonna drain the oil and drop the oil pan, and we might see some galley gasket action in there. What's up, world? It's 9:15 p.m. on Friday night, and this is where I reached so far. You guys already know about the acetylene torch problem, so I went ahead and started doing some things that I could do in the meanwhile. I confirmed the problem, as you can see on this left cam cover. If you guys look closely, right below the tensioner, you see that orange piece of thing hanging there. That is part of the galley gasket, or the galley gasket, which I call the gully gasket. So this just confirmed the problem, that it is indeed that gasket that's blown, causing the engine to have a lack of power. So at least all this work was not in vain. Here we have the outstanding amounts of flames on this crankshaft pulley, mate. We're gonna burn it down to the ground. Saying that. Yeah, we got the oxygen acetylene torch here. We're gonna try to heat this sucker up to just like, you know, Hopefully it'll get like cherry red so we could loosen this with the impact gun. But yeah. Now for some slow-mo goodness. The bolt came loose. So if you guys get stuck with the crankshaft pulley, definitely an acetylene torch. A MAP gas or a propane torch is not going to cut it. You definitely need the acetylene because oxygen and acetylene mix gets way hotter than those gases. And there is the bolts.
Smoking.
Do not touch. Okay, so now this is what I'm doing, guys. So right now I got all the bolts holding the front timing cover on. I got them off, and as you can see, I made a little jig right here. This jig ensures that I put the bolts back exactly where I got them from. And you see these X marks right here? There were holes that were there already prior to me taking out these bolts, and these holes are for other accessories and brackets that I have removed earlier. So this is a neat little trick that mechanics use to ensure the bolts go back in their location when you have numerous different sizes and lengths. So this front cover is held on with a silicone bond, so I'm going to be using the MAP gas to heat up the front cover to ease it coming off. You do not, I repeat, you do not want to crack this cover, because if you go to the dealership and try to buy this aluminum cover, it's gonna be in the thousands maybe, and you won't be able to buy this at a junkyard because they will sell you an entire engine. So take your time, make sure all the bolts are removed, and make sure that you heat it up to allow the silicone to become soft, and make sure you drop the oil pan, because these two gold bolts are holding that cover from the inside of the oil pan. So you have to drain the oil, take the oil pan off, and remove those two bolts. That is a critical step. Walking like a dog. Going around town. You know how SpongeBob said it? Bring it around town. Bring it around town. Stop on the left foot. Don't forget it. I know y'all seen that episode. I ain't the only one, man. I am not the only one that's seen that SpongeBob episode. Yo, this shit.
Fucking power steering. Ever.
Free up from captivity. Oh, nice and slow, baby. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh, this bolt right here goes.
I just told you that. The Master Tech Germ.
It's off. Now show them the galley gasket.
The galley gasket is blown out.
No, go down, down, under the tensioner, right there.
Right here.
Yeah, pull it out on camera and show them. Wait.
Well, this is the part that was blown out, people. There she is, this little piece. And Where else? I see a breakage. I see a breakage up here, Germ.
Yep.
Yep. Multiple places.
Right to
multiple
the
places.
cam actuators.
Look, it's multiple places I had. 1, 2. Wow. So, in actuality, it was bound to happen. If not from there, from like 2 other places. Master Tech.
You already
Right
know
there.
A whole lot of gang shit. Oh, cut that out. Cut that out.
Cut that out.
You already know a whole lot of tech stuff.
Oh man, this is good.
Alright, yeah, man. Now we just gotta get behind it. Now let me show you guys something. So our job is not quite done yet. Now because this plate and this plate is behind the chain, you would imagine you could try to sneak it out, but that's not possible. So we have to at least remove this front chain. Before we do that, we're gonna rotate the engine and make sure the timing is in sync, and we're gonna lock the 2 main camshafts. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, hit the post notification. You couldn't fix your G37 without this video, so make sure you subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Fuck, yo, I just hit my fucking ankle on the fucking jack like this. This nigga in this fucking jack.
This nigga came through cool as hell.
Yo, G, what up, dog?
Wild.
Yeah, say hello to the world, man.
Oh, what's good, world?
Oh, respect. Look, he brought snacks to us, man. Look at that.
Snacks.
Snacks.
Alright. According to Nissan, in order for this engine to time out with all the marks lined up, is almost more than 41 revolutions. It's the equivalent of waiting for a goddamn solar eclipse.
Looking for the orange to meet up with the timer marks, and 1 more revolution around, you gonna meet up. See these lines right here is what Jermaine is waiting for the double orange to meet up with. So next time around it should be meeting up with it. Let's see. As these are very strenuous turns. Oh, look, it's coming. It's meeting up. Oh shit, look. Oh shit, is this it?
Is this it? Is it?
No, it's
The
not.
yellow one went around here. What the?
No, it's not. Yo, we're like cursed, man. Shit ain't.
Let me see this.
Yo, G, how much y'all going to snacks, yo?
Alright, bro.
Huh? $3?
As you can see here, we're trying to time this motor before we take off the chain.
I'm about to go to South Jersey, though.
On the
South Jersey.
driver's side,
See my grandparents.
on my right, you need the double orange to line up with the double elongated lines. And on this side, it needs to be double orange with the double dotted lines.
Respect, G.
And then the crankshaft key lines up with this line on the oil pump. And this timing mark needs to be on the opposite side here. There's going to be 1 over here and 1 over there.
Yo, it's just now, right? After we said 3 more, we was gonna give up and just do it.
Yo, we was about to give up on the timing and make our own mark. And and
Crazy.
from the grace of God and a solar eclipse later, the timing actually timed out. We've been here for like almost an hour rotating.
Like 2 hours, man. At least 2 hours.
This mark is where it should be. This mark is where it should be. This mark is where it should be. The orange on the double elongated dots and the orange on the double dots. So now we know the motor is for sure zeroed out, and we could go ahead and begin to remove the timing chain. But first we're gonna lock the chain on these 2 gears so we don't jump the timing a little bit. Alright, check this out over here. So what I had to do first was, according to the manual, you remove this lower bolt and then you loosen this bolt, but do not remove it. And then you swing the tensioner down. That loosens this bracket right here. This is the chain guide. You see, this goes like that, and this goes like that. And then you remove the top rail, the top guide, and then you loosen this guide. Don't take it out, just loosen it. And then from there you can remove the chain. The top rail is over there on the floor. So now I'm gonna go ahead and remove this. I need to remove this anyway because I have to take these guys off. That's where the galley gasket is. So I'm gonna take this out. Looks like an Allen key. You can pause it. Alright, using a T50 socket, I'm gonna remove this Allen key right here. You always want to put these parts on a clean surface. You don't want any debris or any lint on it. So now that the chain is free, I can access this. You see like another part of this galley gasket is getting blown out over here. So this one I can remove no problem. This one is what concerns me with that screw back there. Maybe I can sneak past one of these teeth and loosen that screw, but we're just gonna have to see. I'm gonna take these out first to see how long the bolts are. Okay, so as a service precaution, because we're already in the belly of the beast, we're gonna go ahead and change the water pump. This guy right here is the water pump. There's no timing related to the water pump. It just spins in whatever direction it wants to spin in. So now that we got the chain off the water pump, we're gonna remove these three 10mm bolts. Old Infinity part, new Infinity part. This is the water pump. As you can see, this water pump didn't really have any excessive play or any major wear to it. It's still good actually. But just look at where we are. If you plan on keeping this car for another 100,000 miles, would you change it or would you leave the old one in there? So I'm gonna go ahead and install this genuine water pump. This one can kick rocks. Got to put on these two new O-rings. It's important that you lube these O-rings with some WD-40 or some something of that nature. You don't want to put like transmission fluid or nothing like that. Just use WD-40. That's good enough. And then I'm gonna be careful not to rip these O-rings. So you put them on just like that. Lube them up, put them back in, bolt them up, torque them down. Just use the Phillips head to remove these bolts out of the lower galley gasket. Gully. Now we're gonna try to get this thingamajigger off here. Everything is like really baked on. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab this channel lock, and then I'm gonna grab something like this. Just like that. So this galley gasket actually is still intact. So this wasn't our problem. Yo, show him pulling up. Show him pulling up.
Look at this worm motherfucker looking like a geek.
Over there.
He got a GPS on his phone, on his shit like a fucking geek.
Oh,
Look at this
man, how you
motherfucker.
get around, bro.
Fucking geek right here. Whole lot.
So as you can see here, this entire piece of the gasket is missing. And these parts are cracked. And you see these are the galleys. This pumps oil through the veins and out through these orifices that goes to the cam actuators. So that was the problem, this little gasket. Yo, cut that recipes. Alright, hold it. Don't cut it that way, cut it from the bottom, idiot. Oh, you fat boy. Alright, back to the gully gasket. I got this little gasket eater or whatever on here. Gonna scrape it off. Okay, so now we're installing the new and improved galley gasket. As you can see it, well, maybe you can't see, but it feels much firmer than the original gasket. It has a metal lining. You can see that metallicness. So we're gonna go ahead and install this. We're gonna reuse these O-rings here because they're in good shape and the dealer won't sell you them without buying this whole entire plate. Okay guys, because we don't want to remove this cam gear right here, as you can see, pixel that, there's a screw hiding right here. So in order for you to sneak past it and get the thread started, you're gonna use a little precision screwdriver like this, so that way it can sneak past the cam gear and actually turn this screw in without moving the cam gear. And that's how I snuck past that. And once you get it in there, you're gonna follow up with a bigger screwdriver and try to get it snug. Okay? Okay, YouTubers, in this section of the video, I highly recommend you use the OEM grade silicone to seal the timing cover. It is very important that you make a nice thick bead all the way around the timing cover as well as the oil pan to ensure that there are no oil leaks. Because if there are oil leaks, you might be pulling this whole entire cover back off again. So I highly recommend you go to Nissan and purchase their OEM grade silicone. Okay people, so we have the timing chain back on, the guide rails are backed on. We torqued them to 8.5 Newton meters. I think the spec was like 6 to 8 foot-pounds, but I converted to Newton meters because my torque wrench reads in Newton meters. We followed the procedure to reset the tensioner. You have to reset the tensioner and lock a pin inside that little hole right there. We used the Nissan grade silicone and went around the outside area. Also, it's important that you silicone these areas as well. And we're getting ready to close this thing up. We double check, triple check, and we also made sure we put Loctite on the tensioner bolts, the timing guide rail bolts, and also the bolts that hold the galley gasket. This guy drives his car really hard to the peak of its performance, and we don't want any bolts vibrating loose and falling down into the oil pan. This is the front plate. We degreased it with brake cleaner and used a gasket scraper to remove all the old silicone. And we're gonna get ready to put that on there. And also, we installed a new oil pressure sending unit switch right there, just as a safety measure. Okay, YouTubers, what's up? As you can see, the car is back together. Today is Tuesday at 10 p.m. The reason why it's been taking so long, I had other cars to work on in between, and also I had to get a few parts from Infinity. The owner wanted to change the damper because the acetylene torch kind of burnt up some of the rubber, so we had to wait on that. And the dipstick needed a new O-ring and some other things. Of course, we got a new drive belt on there and some pulleys and stuff like that. So this thing is back together. The oil's been changed, antifreeze is in it. I primed the oil pressure. I had the fuel pump fuse out. That's the first fuse on the top left, 15 amps. And also I had the 2 cam sensors disconnected while I was cranking the motor, so that way the engine wouldn't start, but it would prime the oil pressure. Now that that's been done, I plugged the cam sensors in, I have the fuse in, and I'm gonna give this thing the first crank since it's been taken apart. So like my other YouTuber guy said, it's either I'm gonna fly or die right now. And the last riding on this, my friend's car has been down for about 4 days now. So first, I'm going to reset the ECU because I was cranking the motor without the crank sensors plugged in. I mean the cam sensors. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear the ECU. And now we're gonna do the initial start. This is the first time, so, oh boy, first time. Fly or die. This car is really loud, and my neighbors has already been complaining about noise complaints. So I'm gonna finish this video tomorrow morning. As you can see, it started up, but we want to get the engine to operation temperature and take it for a test drive to make sure everything is a-okay. So stay tuned. If you like videos like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, make a comment or two, and hit the post notification.
Alright, people.
Just like that, she's running. So I'm gonna go ahead and top off this antifreeze and bleed all the air out the system, because we did change the water pump, we did drain the radiator. I put a brand new thermostat on it. This car is at 100,000 miles plus. Now she's quiet. So the little noise that I was hearing, it turns out that the dipstick tube was rubbing against the crankshaft pulley. So with just some minor adjustment of bending the bracket and stuff like that, I gave enough clearance so that way it's not touching anymore. As you can see, the engine's idling nice and smooth. After we get it warmed up and the antifreeze bled, we're gonna go for a little test ride, and we're gonna fly or die. This is the initial test drive of the 37. Okay, slow down, nigga. Woo-hoo-hoo. Woo! The brakes on this shit, serious. Yo, I definitely felt the VVT technology.